Previously on Libel the Bible.
Jacob's wives forced their maids to bear Jacob's children.
Jacob and Rachel finally conceive and have a child.
Jacob grows wealthy working for Laban.
Afraid of Laban's sons and their jealousy of his success, Jacob flees back to Canaan.
Laban, upset that Jacob snuck away, chases him down, but is told by God not to do anything to Jacob.
Jacob remembers that his twin brother Esau wants to kill him and prepares tributes to try to buy his forgiveness.
Jacob spends all night wrestling with God and has his name changed to Israel.
And now, episode 8 of Libel the Bible. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Scott.
I'm Rusty.
How was your week, Russ?
My
It's
week?
pretty interesting.
At least I didn't say so.
True.
I mean, is a little bit of a change of pace from so.
Yeah, true. Oh, so based on some recent complaints you've had about how I operate, let me tell you a knock joke. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Impatient cow.
Impatient.
Sorry, did I cut you off again? I'm sorry. All right, so I'm like in month a week of non-drinking exile.
You're what? You're a month a week?
A month and a week into like not drinking, but I brought a bottle of Riesling up with me. I'm not a white wine, sweet wine kind of guy,
Yeah.
but it's in front of me, and I'm thinking about cracking it open for this show.
I was never a fan of Riesling.
I'm not either, and I just want to get rid of it.
I think there's like a reason most Rieslings are like $8, $7.
is this really like an $8
They're not
bottle?
like expensive.
And listen, I'm not that I'm a wine snob, but I'm not really a white wine kind of guy.
You didn't have any red wine?
I didn't, because if I had red wine, I would have drank it. So I made sure I didn't have any red wine. No beer or no red wine. I have pretty much a bunch of white wines I don't like, and
I
a
don't
bunch
understand.
of bunch of liquors I probably won't drink.
Why did dry January turn into dry 2022?
It was just because I don't know. I didn't want to drink home by myself. Tomorrow I'm going out again. I'm starting to go out again. So, tomorrow is going to be my big day. But I'm thinking maybe if I take a white wine that's got a little less alcohol content than I'm used to, it could be like a primer for tomorrow.
Nice.
Warm up, make sure I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right,
So it's kind of like spring training for you right now.
yeah, pitches and catches are reporting right now.
Okay.
So, fuck it, I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pop this baby.
No, you know how I feel about you drinking. I'm on board.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. But I kind of think like as I get older, I want less crap in my house that I have no interest in.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna drink all the things that I'm not interested in.
It's early spring cleaning.
Yeah, and you know what? It's been a while. Maybe I don't mind white wines. I don't know. I don't really consider Riesling a wine anyway.
So you asked me how my week was, and then you interrupted me and went into your week.
Kind of what I do.
So I was thinking about the podcast and my approach to the podcast, and I'm going to take it easy. Yeah, I'm not really going to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, the studio audience saw it, but the outside world didn't. Like, I'm still patching up the holes in the wall because Rusty kind of flipped out last week when shit didn't go his way. But what you didn't know is that was like the 17th recording we did of that show because, man, he was just out of control, which he gets often, But we'll talk about that when he goes to the bathroom.
So today we're going to do Genesis 33 to 35.
I have 36 here.
36? No, 33 to 35. You can save 36 for next week.
I am pretty sure, and I'm going to check the records that you said 33 to 36.
Well, I mean, we could do 36.
We'll talk about it when we get there because it's really nothing.
I didn't read it.
There's nothing to read.
Is it the genealogy of Esau?
Yeah, it's names.
Yeah, that's why I was going to save it for the following episode, but whatever. Yeah. I don't know. I felt like there was a lot to talk about, while at the same time not a lot to talk about.
In this episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's some powerful stuff here.
Powerful.
Maybe it's not a lot, but what it lacks in quantity, it makes up in quality.
Okay. So when we left,
wait. After you hear it, I don't want people thinking like I think this is quality stuff. Like this is the kind of stuff I want in my life, and it's just good stuff. No,
you're saying you don't want to build people's expectations up.
No, after you hearing the material, I don't want people to think that, like I'm really into this kind of stuff. Like I don't want to, you know what I mean? It's deep, not good.
I see. So it's kind of like if somebody goes through your search engine and looks at the things that you're searching for. Those aren't the things you want people to think that you're into.
I use DuckDuckGo and Firefox in incognito mode. For
Scott's done all the necessary research to cover his tracks.
I am on a Tor browser, baby.
So, the last time we left off...
this wine is ass. I'm sorry.
Jacob was on his way to Canaan.
Mm-hmm.
And he was running from Laban, but then they made a covenant. So he's back on his way to where his dad is. And remember, the reason that he left his dad in the first place and his mom was because his brother Esau pledged to kill him as soon as Isaac died. And Isaac was like on his deathbed giving the two boys his blessing, or one of the boys his blessing.
Yes.
Jacob had stolen Esau's blessing. Much earlier, he had stolen his birthright. So he's on his way back, Jacob now.
Yes, and
this is decades later.
It's got to be decades.
Yeah.
It's like, because he stayed for 7, 14, 20, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So decades later, and he sent the messenger up ahead to say, tell Esau I'm coming home. Yeah. And the messenger came back. He's like, oh, he's going to meet you halfway, and he's got 400 men with him.
Right. And then he wrestles God.
Yeah.
And God gives him a new name, Israel, which is going to come up again later. But that's basically where we left off.
Yes.
So Genesis 33 starts with Jacob and Esau meet. You want to set the scene for that?
Sure. So now they're, I picture everything's in a desert. I don't know why. Is that accurate?
So, okay. So it's good that you picture it that way. I picture it that way too. And then I have to stop myself and remember. The time that this takes place is about 5,000 years ago. Let's call it 5,000. So let's say the Garden of Eden is 6,000 years ago, roughly speaking. We're like about 1,000 years later, give or take.
Wait a minute. So you're saying humans first appeared 6,000 years ago? According to this?
I'm saying that, yes, according to this.
So that would be around 4,000 BC?
Something like that.
When were the Flintstones?
Maybe even, what?
When did the Flintstones happen?
Like, oh, at first I was like, it's a 60s show, but now, so you're saying like,
what time period did it take place?
In what time period did cave people with cars and dinosaurs, what time period did that? In prehistoric times.
If this is in the Bible, it's recorded history. So this is in historic times.
Yes.
So prehistoric would be anything before this.
Well, prehistoric would be before any like writing.
Whoa. Okay. Wait. Were there any books before the Bible? Was the Bible the first book?
No,
probably not. Right?
The Bible was not the first book.
Okay. So.
Getting back to the desert.
Yeah.
So 5,000 years ago, this region that they're in, I don't know if it's completely lush and fertile, but large portions of it certainly are. I'm not saying there aren't like desert parts. I'm not saying there aren't wastelands or barrenness parts, but I'm saying that where people are settling, there's a reason it was called the cradle of civilization. There's a reason it was called the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia, the land between two rivers. Like, this is where farming first started. So this is like describing that area in that time period when civilization first arose.
All right, so I'm just trying to get a visual in my head, like what it looks like. So
I mean, traveling in between cities the way Jacob is right now, you might be right. He might be traveling. I don't think it's like the Sahara. I don't know if you're picturing like massive sand dunes, and sand blowing all over the place. Think more like a grassy field where someone's ripped out like all the grass and it's just like dirt.
What about like
rocks.
What about like a Clark W. Griswold after he crashes the car going to look for a mechanic?
Yes. Okay. Like that's around the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. All right. All right. Regardless. So yeah. So Jacob's marching towards wherever Esau lives. That was Canaan, right?
Yeah, they're going back to Canaan. I forgot the specific like city. Canaan's more like the region.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and shimmering above the sand, well, whatever it is, you know, when you look far, you get the shimmering, so you can't really make out what's coming at you. He sees like a dot, and then it gets bigger and bigger. Then all of a sudden, he sees 401 men.
Yeah. He's traveling with like his whole caravan.
Yeah, and he's got a posse himself, but a lot of cattle and a lot of women, and a lot of children.
He's manning up because he's out in front.
See, when I first read it, he said when he saw this massive amount of people coming towards him, he split everybody up, and he said he put the maids and the children in the front, and then Leah and the children behind them, and then finally Rachel and Joseph. And I was like, is he using them as human shields? But then they clearly state he took the lead and he went forward towards
he could have put like the most vulnerable ones up front, knowing his brother wasn't going to attack them, you know? So it's almost like a sign of fealty. He's like showing his brother, like, I'm not here to fight you. I'm going to put like the weakest among us up front. I'm not trying to present any danger. I'm coming on my hands and knees.
Okay, so Esau comes with 400 men.
Yeah.
What did he tell these men they were going to do? Like, why did he bring 400 men? In case Jacob was coming, like, to be a jerk?
I don't think he has to tell them anything. I think they're in his employ. And what do they care? They're getting paid by the hour.
It's like a free day, right? Not making bricks or something.
Yeah, they came home that night. They were like, they told their wives, you know, we thought we were going to war today, but we just, you know, we went for a hike in the desert.
So I wonder why, like, did he, I don't understand the whole purpose of the 400 men. Or maybe he traveled along hostile lands and they were there for protection, not from Jacob and his people, but the people they had to cross on their way to them. Who knows?
I have a little bit of a theory about the 400 men, but let's get to that.
Oh, okay. So Jacob goes up to Esau, bows 7 times as he walks up to them, and he kind of puts his head down, and Esau just grabs him, starts hugging him, starts kissing on him, grabs him in the biscuits.
Really happy to see him.
Yeah, very happy. And then they weep because that seems to be a thing.
The Bible says he fell on his neck, which was weird. Like, that was a weird expression. Like, to me,
like with his mouth.
To me, falling on someone's neck denotes like violence, you know? Like, I fell on his neck because, like, the neck is such a vulnerable area.
Maybe he gave him a hickey.
But, all right, so he's, like, kissing them all up.
You don't hear that word very often, do you?
Hickey?
Yeah, I mean, we're not teenagers or preteens, but...
I mean, I don't know what goes on in your house.
Hey, anybody on our social media post if like they've heard of hickeys.
Leave a comment down below. By the way, my son says that our show openings, he watches a lot of YouTube videos.
Yeah.
He's 7 years old, so you can only imagine what kind of videos he watches. He says we need more energy, like in our openings, sort of like, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Libel the Bible.
Maybe I think that's a lot of energy, hard to maintain throughout the whole thing. But
no, just for the opening. Yeah.
Maybe we could take suggestions from people like in the style of the episode can change based on like what people suggest.
I got to tell you, people are not that smart, and their suggestions aren't that good. Except our listeners, of course. We would be more than happy to listen to anything they have to say. But not really.
Yeah. All right.
So,
so
he falls on his neck. He's really happy to see him.
Yeah. So when they're done, like
slobbering over each other, giving each other.
And this is a true bromance because they're brothers. He looks around and goes, who are these people, Jacob? And Jacob's like, these are, God was good to me. You're good to your servant. He's calling himself his servant. He's kissing a little ass.
He's showing him his belly.
Yeah, showing him his belly. Yeah, that'd be funny if he just scratched his belly. Give me that belly. Give me that belly, Jacob. Scratch. Sorry, there's more energy for your son. So yeah, he goes.
I'm gonna cut that out. Don't worry.
Yeah, that sounded weird. It's not that kind of show. So he goes, yeah. So these people were given to me by God, and you can have them.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I got enough. I'm good. And then Henny Youngman jumped out from behind a tree. He was like, take my wives, please.
So what happens is it gets weird. I'll tell you why it gets weird. So Esau, you would expect, because in this time, like when people say something they're going to do when they pledge, it's very serious back then. You know what I mean? It seems like if I pledge that I will kill him, that's what you're going to do.
He's got a lot of years to...
They don't have like psychotherapy back then. They don't have, drugs that help calm you down.
No, just see ladders going up to the heavens. Yeah, they don't need drugs, buddy. That's why.
Well,
maybe that's
they don't
why
have. They have the natural drugs that like affect your brain in a negative way. They don't have pharmaceutical companies that really, are there for your benefit.
Right.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. So maybe there is some truth, like because God's no longer in society's lives in general. That's why there's so much drug use and everything. Because if God was more in people's lives, they'd be seeing shit and hearing shit and having visions. They wouldn't need, peyote and
God was
things.
God was in people's lives when the Sodomites were trying to break down poor Lot's house, trying to get at like the strangers.
I don't think God was in their lives. He got in their lives in a big way after that, but I don't think no, definitely not.
So wait, so you're suggesting that we need God in our lives?
No, I'm just making because there's no God. Everybody's on drugs.
Are you converting?
No. I'm just saying. Listen.
You're just saying. Well, that's what Jesus did. Jesus was just saying.
Who's Jesus?
And then they crucified him.
Whoa! Spoiler alert. We're not there.
And then they wrote a book about him.
All right, let's move on. I don't know what I'm saying about God. I'm just.
So Esau, you would expect Esau to be super mad at the situation, and he's not. And they wind up traveling together back to Isaac's homeland. Wrong.
No. So, take my wives, please. No. I've got enough. Then Jacob says, "Seeing you is like seeing the face of God." He goes, "All right, fine. I'll take this offering." And he goes, "We'll travel together." And Jacob goes, "No. You go ahead. I've got slow cattle and frail children."
They weren't traveling together yet when this happened, and then Esau wanted to continue on, and Jacob was like, "I think we want to rest here for like the night."
Something like that. But
I think they did start moving together.
All right, maybe, but they didn't. Jacob says, "Listen, I'm going to hold you up. Go do your thing. We'll meet there eventually." And then he goes, "All right, I'll leave you some of my people." And he's like, "Why are you so kind?" And then he leaves. So I don't know if he actually left them people or he just left. I don't know.
So I read this part many, many times. I think Jacob is not trusting of Esau. I think this is what's going on.
Oh, he doesn't want him traveling alongside.
And I'm not so sure that Esau showed up to be generous and forgiving. So Esau shows up with 400 men, and exactly like you asked, like why would he need 400 men if he's so happy to see his brother? So then they start traveling together, and something must have transpired while they started their journey back, where at some point Jacob was like, "I'm getting a bad feeling about what's happening." And so when Esau is like, wants to continue, Jacob comes up with the excuse that, they're going to rest.
Fair enough.
Then Esau was like, "Well, let me leave some men with you." And Jacob's like, "Nah, I'm cool. Like, we don't need your men. Thanks a lot." Right?
Do you think these were men that were whispering to each other? And Jacob would catch him, and they would just like look at him and smile like a goofy grin.
I think something definitely spooked Jacob.
I like that.
And by the way, he tells him, Don't worry, we'll meet up at whatever place.
Yeah, Dad's house.
But that's not at all where he winds up going.
Yeah.
He goes to some other city as a layover before eventually making his way to Seshem.
Yeah, but before he goes to Seshem, he stops at Succoth.
Succoth.
And everywhere he's gone before, he pitches a tent. He fucking, language. He builds a house and boots for his cows.
What do you, language? What does that mean? Language?
I don't know. Bad language and drugs, but no God in your life.
Holy fucking shit, Scott. I can't believe you said that.
So yeah, he builds a house. Like, that's got to be time consuming. I mean, he's got a lot of people with him. It could be like a Amish barn raising. Mm-hmm. You know, they build quick, right? I think they build them quick.
Like a longhouse.
A longhouse?
Yeah, Native Americans, like in the New York area, like the Iroquois, they used to build longhouses where, like, the whole tribe, like, slept inside of, like, a long house.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, well, whatever kind of house he builds and boots for his cattle. How to be time consuming, and I'm thinking that's long haul kind of thing. Like, you plan on staying a while.
Mm-hmm.
But then they make no mention of that house again.
Or maybe it's like Risk, you know, like as you're like conquering the world, you leave like little armies behind.
You still
like,
have that game?
As you move. I don't have Risk.
Huh. You were really into that game at one time.
I
right?
loved Risk. It's a good game.
Was that the game you played on the on the subway, like in Seinfeld? That was a Seinfeld episode, right? There was Risk.
Ukraine is joke to you?
Oh, I'm not even talking about the Ukraine now with the current events.
So, by the way, do you know about that Russian figure skater?
Okay, yeah, I do, but I'll let you speak. I don't want to just jump in, but yeah, I do.
She's a 15-year-old, and she...
I don't know how old she was. But.
She was 15, and she tested positive for, like, some controlled substance. It's like a heart medication, but it's also like an amphetamine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they won already the team competition. They won the gold medal in, like, the team skating. And I'm almost certain, because the Olympic Committee is trying to figure out what to do. Now, under any normal circumstances, they would strip them of the gold medal.
Absolutely.
And the gold would go to the United States, who had won the silver.
Oh, shit.
I have no doubt in my mind the only reason they haven't stripped them already is because of the Ukraine situation. It'll be like the final straw for Putin. You take away gold medal?
Is that a Russian accent? Because that kind of matches Ukrainian.
You know what's crazy?
Yeah.
The one thing that I want to do before I die.
Oh, bucket list.
Is accents. I want to learn how to do I would love to learn how to do a German accent. I'm so bad at accents.
Yeah, people that do accents are really funny.
It's just funny, right? Like
talent.
you could say almost anything with an accent, and it's funny.
Hysterical. Yeah.
I have to use my brain and come up with witticisms. You know what I mean? That's not easy.
Or successful most of the time. Yeah. Wait, getting back to the figure skater real quick. I just saw it on the news like doping scandal. I'm like, is anybody surprised that a Russian Olympian is like test positive for drugs?
They're not even allowed to be Russian Olympians. They're like the
that weird
Russian Olympic Committee athlete because they've. Do you know why they're not allowed to participate as Russia? It's insane.
I don't recall.
They had the Winter Olympics in Sochi, which is a Russian city, in 2014. It's actually like a resort town because it's warm, but whatever. Because of corruption from the IOC, they granted Sochi the Winter Olympics.
Oh, no.
Russia, the government, built a lab right next to the testing facility. And then they had like these secret entryways. So like after like whatever, like weightlifting isn't in the Winter Olympics. After any event, the athletes go and get tested in a lab. Well, at night, the Russians, government sanctioned, would sneak into the lab through like the secret passageway that they built and like fuck with the samples so that Russian athletes would not test positive. And the Russian athletes that were testing positive, that was state sanctioned, like steroid use or performance enhancing use, whatever. So, like, listen, the Russians' defense is, well, everybody's doing it, and they might be right. You know, obviously it's hyperbolic to say everyone, but, you know, athletes do. But not every country is actually, athletes are doing it on their own as individuals. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's why they got some kind of ban where they're allowed to participate in the Olympics, but they can't fly the Russian flag and they're not allowed to be called the Russian team. And so while they're under this ban, this 15-year-old figure skater tests positive for an amphetamine. It's unbelievable. But
so, yes, welcome to our Olympics podcast.
hey, it says culture in the fucking description. If you don't like it, you can all fuck off.
Whoa. Okay. So then, I guess Jacob leaves his house that he built, and he comes outside. He stops outside the city of Shechem.
So hold on, I'm sorry. So as someone who went to yeshiva,
did you pitch a tent in yeshiva?
I'm gonna say I pitched a lot of tents. I was like 9 years old. Tents were being pitched without like me even wanting to pitch tents. So. I mean, you had to see like these hot women that were teaching.
All right.
They had like skirts down just above their ankles with gray socks and flats on. Ooh, yeah. And wigs. Yeah. I'm going to say the way to pronounce it is Sechem. I think the CH is just pronounced without the C.
It's like Chaim.
Yeah, like that.
Oh,
so I'm going to say Sechem. But I don't know, so Sechem works, but I'm going to say Sechem.
At least I took the time and didn't just go.
So he settles right outside Sechem.
Yeah, he buys the land. Like it's like for whatever 100 quatlus or whatever the price of the day was. He buys the land and builds an altar.
I think, by the way, this is the first piece of land that's owned by any member of the of Abraham's family, because the only thing that Isaac owned was like the plot of land that he was going to bury his wife in and himself in, because he didn't own any land, I don't think.
No, I thought Abraham and Rebecca. What was it? No, Sarai.
Isaac and Rebecca and
who got buried in the cave?
Oh, that was Abraham and Sarah.
They paid for that, right?
That's
you
what
didn't want
paid
the gift.
For.
Yeah.
Right. So, in any event,
man, if you had put $1 in cemetery stock back then, holy crap, it blew up after that.
Nah, man, I would have invested in Bitcoin back then.
I would have invested in it, would have tanked immediately.
Yeah. So, Jacob sets up shop outside Sechem.
Yeah.
And things get weird.
You keep saying
things get super weird. I mean, violent and weird. I mean, basically no different than any other portion of Genesis so far.
Right. Brings us to chapter 34, the rape of Dinah. And for those that skipped over the name sections, like we always do, that was daughter of Leah, which was the one he got tricked into marrying by Laban, right? That's Rachel's older sister.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, go ahead. Tell this story.
So, one day, Dinah or Dinah, however you say it, she goes to visit, like, the ladies, or visit with the ladies. I don't know what that means.
Sewing circle, wash ladies.
Tupperware sale,
something,
things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So she goes
LuLaRoe.
I've got stories about that. So she goes and visits with the ladies. And like while she's out. Oh, by the way, before I begin this story, I just want to say, so the city that they're in is called Sechem. There's going to be a character that
I was
shows
gonna
up
point that out, but
whose name is Sechem.
I'm glad you interrupted yourself this time. It wasn't me.
So, not to be confused with the city, there's going to be a character named Sechem. So she goes out, she's visiting with the ladies, and I guess like either on her way to visit with the ladies or coming back. In one of those scenarios, the son of the guy who's in charge of the city of Sechem.
Was he in charge?
He's the prince.
Like
he was the prince of Sechem.
And his son was named after the city, or he named the city after his son?
Either way.
Chicken egg, yeah.
Yeah. So this kid, Sechem, a typical frat boy rich kid who thinks the world owes him everything.
Right, yeah. Just what he wants.
Yeah. He's probably got
We're talking to you, Brock Peters.
He's wearing like a
name?
button-down shirt with like his Dockers and like the sweater tied around his neck.
Yeah,
one of these fucking cunts.
I grew up so privileged, I didn't know I was doing wrong.
He sees Dina, who's apparently hot.
I guess.
And so, like any normal man, he rapes her.
Yeah, of course.
He rapes her, because why not?
Yeah.
And it was so good, this rape. The best rape he's ever had.
Yes.
He falls in love with her.
Yeah, starts speaking tenderly to her afterwards. Like, come on, don't be that creepy.
I mean, this is...
Be a rapist, not a rapist and a creep.
And what's fantastic about this whole thing is how casual it's, like, told in the Bible. Like, it was almost like... It was no different from any other description of anything else that happens. Like, they didn't even devote, like, a whole section to it. It was just, like, a throwaway line. Like, he saw her, and as, like, his right, basically, he raped her.
Yeah, and it's even mentioned later that it was not the right thing to do. Not like this was an abomination.
Yeah.
This was just, it was not the right thing to do, or something along those lines.
It's like, he was chewing gum and, just left it on someone's driveway.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Someone's going to step in that.
So he rapes her and falls in love with her. And he
then tells his dad.
Yeah, he goes and tells his dad. So his dad's name is Hamor or Hammer. Hamar.
Hamor. H-A-M-O-R.
Hamor. Okay.
Hamor.
So he tells his dad Hamor, who's the prince of Sechem, and he tells his dad, Daddy, can you please get her for me? Because I don't know how to do anything for myself.
Wait a minute. Maybe he didn't rape because he was privileged. Maybe this is the first ass he's ever had, so he fell in love with it immediately. Like, oh, shoot, I got some, I love it, no matter,
I want you to think back to your youth and think of the first woman or, like, real woman in the world or girl that you looked at and desired. Did you rape her?
No. I mean, no.
Right. So let's move on to more. I mean, but Scott, by all means, if you would like to defend,
I wasn't defending it. No, I was talking about him falling in love with her.
Mm-hmm.
No, raping is just
he's a
psychopath.
So you're saying it was like his first piece, so
right?
He fell
in love with it. Like the only one that ever touched him like that was his mother. Before.
I'm gonna say that like you don't commit rape for your first time. You do it consensually a couple of times.
I'm not talking about the rape.
You work your way up to the rape.
Yes, all right.
That's how I would do.
Did you just say work your way up to the rape? It's almost like you and missing the. Okay. Yeah. So Jacob finds out about this. I guess because she came running home screaming. I'm sorry, Israel.
Is that what happened, or did they? Okay, yes. So Jacob finds out about it, and
why are we calling him Jacob again?
Well, because even though his name was changed after that Brokeback Mountain night that he had, like wrestling with God, and God did tell him you're named Israel, he's still being referred to as Jacob.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you're referring to him wrestling with God as a Brokeback Mountain moment?
Yeah, he was like all alone with God, and they were wrestling around
wrestling
all night on the ground.
No, you don't wrestle in the air.
Do you know the
man.
history of Greco-Roman wrestling?
I don't. We can save that for.
It was done in the nude.
We can save that for the second episode of our Olympics podcast.
Well, I like to imagine them wrestling naked.
That's fine. That's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you embarrassed by the thought of God naked?
Just because the last naked man you wrestled with you referred to as God doesn't mean that's what was going on here.
Let me ask you a question. As men, we've learned, grooming is not the worst thing in the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if God is all-knowing and all-powerful and, he sees all, right? You think back then, when he was wrestling around naked with Jacob, and he was naked, you think he had the foresight to know grooming was going to be a thing one day and he himself was groomed? I mean, I'm assuming Jacob is just full-on hairy.
Wrong. So you're not following this. Jacob was absolutely hairless. Remember they had to pull that
You
trick
think he was able to get that sheepskin off his skin?
after 20 years?
Yeah, okay.
Some goo gone. That comes off.
All right. So...
why do you think they were wrestling naked?
I don't. I'm just trying to get through certain riffs and just trying to think out loud.
All right.
Well, wait. You asked me why I think they were wrestling naked?
Yeah.
Because that's what gets me off.
So who's editing this one?
So... Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. So back on track here. So he hears about it. And he said he's going to keep quiet until he's got his sons as his backup.
Mm-hmm.
And then, something's got to be done about this thing.
But here comes Hamor. Hamor's going to approach him.
Hamor
goes
the
to
rapist
him.
dad.
So, I mean, it's a good move. Hamor is the prince. He could have easily called Jacob to him, and be summoned him, because he's fuck it, I don't care.
Yeah.
My son didn't do anything illegal. Apparently, it's not illegal.
Yeah, it was just referred to as not the right thing to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So he comes up to Jacob and he tells Jacob, my son is in love with Dinah and he wants to marry her.
Yeah. And the sons they're mad, but they kind of go.
Well, the sons come back from the field at this point.
Right.
They overhear everything, and they find out basically that Dinah was raped, and that this kid Sechem wants to marry her, right? And the king or the prince Hamor, he's like, "I'll give you we will be one people, if these two kids marry, then you can mingle with our family, with our women,
we take your
and
daughters, you take our daughters, we share the land.
That whole thing,
Kumbaya.
we will be one big happy family.
Kumbaya, yeah.
And do they agree to this?
They do agree to it,
but
what's
the but?
See, you know what? I didn't like the fact that the Bible gave you the spoiler. So,
well, how so?
Well, if I say it, then I gave the spoiler.
Are we going to get to it?
It's coming. It's coming right up.
So I know what's coming up, and I didn't like the way you said it's coming up.
It's coming out.
It's coming off.
Yeah. I wasn't even talking about that part. There's something worse afterwards. So yeah, they agree to this deal on one condition.
Mm-hmm.
You all got to get circumcised. Okay. Not just you and your rapist son. Every male in the city has to get circumcised.
Right. So in other words, because under this deal, we can all intermarry. We're going to be one community.
Mm-hmm.
But because Jacob is a descendant of Abraham who has made a covenant with God, Jacob and all of his descendants must be circumcised in order to keep that covenant with God.
And if you decide you're not going to get circumcised, we're out. We're taking our daughter and leaving. Can I just point out that Shechem, it says, did not delay to do this thing. Why is everybody in a rush to circumcise? There's only been 2 urgent things so far in the Bible.
Okay.
This is the second one, and both the circumcisions.
So this part makes sense because he's so in love with Dinah. It makes sense. He's like, that's all? He's like probably completely ecstatic at this point. He's off the hook for the rape. His dad managed to broker a deal for him to marry this woman. So he's like, if the only thing I have to do is snip myself, you know.
Except there's not, no. He's got to get the whole city to do it.
Okay. So you found his reaction weird that he ran off, right? Like, why is he so happy?
Right, maybe I didn't mean, I meant what's coming up next, where they get the whole city circumcised.
So that's the part that I have huge issues with. So he runs to the city.
They go to the gate or the
he gathers
town
all
square.
the people.
Hear ye.
Right. And he announces that I'm going to marry this woman, but everyone here has to get circumcised, right?
What the crowd do?
And then there's a big protest, right?
No, not that I saw.
They do it.
And I think they all high five, like, yay.
All right, let me ask you a question, Scott.
Yep. Would I get circumcised for you to get laid?
We live in a very controversial time. We have people protesting today in New York City because of vaccine mandates for city workers.
I thought that exactly when I read this, by the way.
And they don't want to get a vaccine. Now, I'm not here to argue whether they should or shouldn't get a vaccine. I will say we are fairly advanced in our medical science. I'm not saying we're where we're going to be 300 years from now.
Of course.
But I'm saying there are amazing things that have been done. And I'm saying vaccines have helped society tremendously beginning in the 20th century.
I mean, says you and your big pharma propaganda.
So, people don't trust the vaccine. Now, again, I'm not saying whether they should or shouldn't trust it. They should. But, okay, it's someone's right to say you can't force a vaccine on me, especially when it was produced under what I perceive to be rushed circumstances.
Okay.
Even though, if anyone looks at it rationally now, over 10 billion doses have been administered worldwide. It's the largest possible study that could be done on a worldwide scale. We have all the data available to us, okay? It's perfectly safe and reasonable.
I experienced a side effect, but go ahead. We can get to that.
Right. But again, that's anecdotal, and you have to weigh that against the world's population that has received it. But anyway, people are protesting over this. These fucking assholes are like, it's not even for their benefit. This is just some guy.
The government,
This is
really.
just some guy can marry this woman, and he's like, the only thing you have to do is get circumcised. And by the way, again, you brought this up in the circumcision episode. Are people aware that, why do circumcisions exist in the first place? Like, why does the word exist? Why do people know what it is? So when God told Abraham the first time, you have to get circumcised, did Abraham know what that meant? Why was it happening?
Is it possible that, I mean, I would assume a lot of things were done naked back in the day because, there wasn't big clothing. I don't know.
I don't assume it, but I like to imagine it.
Do you think somebody maybe got their foreskin caught on something and it got torn off accidentally, like completely, like not intentionally?
Yeah, but we call that mutilation. They got mutilated.
Well, I mean, people might call circumcisions mutilation.
But why would they do it medically? What was the purpose for doing it medically?
Because the guy who got his penis all jacked up on the grindstone or whatever he was using, got made fun of. Somehow he got into power. And he was like, no, this is what you all should be doing.
Oh.
And it was kind of like it had to be an accident. Like, who said? I can understand self-mutilate. Like, I want to cut something off my body. Why? I would not start with the penis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would put a stupid ring in my ear and make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and then wonder why I can't get a job because I got a big hole in my ear. That's about it.
So it was like a matter of circumstance that turned into like this whole big thing.
You don't think the word circumstance and circumcision are eerily close together?
Maybe that's why I brought it up. So there's like, I don't know if this is real, but I've read
Israel
in Spain, you know, when they pronounce their S's, they lisp. So you would
never
say,
been to Spain, but
so if you're in Madrid, which is the capital of Spain, you don't have to be to Spain to know things about Spain. I've never been to Spain either.
Where would I find out about this?
I know of Spain, and I've read about Spain. I know that people speak Spanish in Spain.
I know the rain there falls mainly on the plain.
Scott. All right. So,
yeah,
you do know of the country of Spain.
Yes, I've heard of it.
All right. So,
I believe Christopher Columbus sailed for them.
In like parts of Spain, they lisp their S's when they're speaking. And I read somewhere, I don't know how true this is, I read that it was because there was a king who had a lisp when he pronounced his S's, and so everyone wound up, like the language wound up changing to that lisp. I've also read that, so you know the Victorian era in England under Queen Victoria, so this is in the 1800s. Apparently, British people didn't speak with an accent the way they speak with an accent today. And so she originated like that accent, and then people copied her.
Do you think they all got hit in the head and they got that foreign language accent syndrome or whatever it's called? You heard about that?
No, I never heard about that.
Some people that receive like traumatic brain injuries start speaking British.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. Look it up, man.
I'm going to do that.
So you're actually backing my story,
thing,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I'm providing. Yeah, why are you so surprised? Were you expecting me to be combative?
30 years of experience. That's all. Sorry.
All right. So everyone in the town gets circumcised. They have no fucking problem with it. Today, people throw a fit. Like, there are a million videos a day of people not even wanting to show their vaccine passport.
Is it possible, because we spoke about it being a health issue getting circumcised because people didn't wash their junk, maybe people all had infected penises and there was no fucking health care. And now here comes the king, or whatever his title is, demanding that you get a circumcision. It was almost like the first like socialized medicine.
Maybe.
Like, they're like, thank God I get this gangrene off my penis.
Maybe they saw how many kids Jacob had, knew he was circumcised, and were like,
oh, yeah.
But either way,
A lot of reasons, yeah.
I don't think any sane man would agree to get circumcised so that this kid can marry Dina. But they do. So they get circumcised. The whole town gets circumcised.
Suckers.
Yes, they are suckers, not only because they get circumcised, but
Dina's brothers avenge their sister.
About 3 days after the circumcisions take place, when everyone in the town is recovering from the circumcision.
They mentioned while the pain was still, and I didn't know, was it the pain of the circumcision or was their pain of their sister being raped still so raw?
When do kids get circumcised, Scott? Do you know?
I don't know.
So
young. Oh, wait. No, it was in the Bible.
That's right.
The 8th day?
Like the second week. So in the Jewish tradition, you get circumcised like in the second week. I forgot how many days.
I think it was 8 days.
8 days? Okay, that's the second
Couldn't
week.
do it on the 7th
That's
day.
the second week,
Couldn't
Scott.
do it on the 7th day because people were chewing. Can't be cutting penises on the 7th day.
I was not circumcised.
That's
on the 8th day.
You got it a couple weeks ago or something.
Getting circumcised. I was old enough to remember. So I was born in the Soviet Union. We couldn't get a circumcision. For some reason, we can get a fake like birth certificate, like showing that I was born not on the day that I was born and not in the year that I was born. That was easy.
You couldn't
apparently.
get a circumcision because that's a Jewish thing?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
I guess it was hard to arrange. I don't know. It's like you can't even get toilet paper. Maybe you need a lot of... I don't know. For whatever reason, I didn't get circumcised.
So it wasn't due to anti-Semitism. It was just, it was the Soviet Union.
So it's possible that my parents were just negligent and just like, never got around to it. I mean, it's highly possible. So when we got here... I think the reason I wound up getting circumcised was
Grindstone
in
accent.
the first episode I mentioned there was a Jewish organization. It was called Hayas. I didn't remember the name of it in the first episode. I said like Hadas or Hamas.
Probably
It definitely
not
was
Hamas.
not Hamas. It was Hayas.
Which I believe
H-I-A-S.
Which I believe was a legally elected government of Palestine, I believe.
So, under the condition or because they were giving us money, I was taken to be circumcised. I was either had just turned 5. My birthday is in December. My birthday, not my official documented birthday. My actual birthday is in December. So it's wintertime. It's always wintertime. We're in New York, so you could tell like what time of the year it is. And
Oh, you were in New York at this
so
time.
I was either, yes. So we were already in America. We had just gotten here. We got to America. I was 4 years old. I was 2 months shy of turning 5. So that winter, I got circumcised. I don't know if it was just before my 5th birthday or just after my 5th birthday. I remember the place that I got circumcised at. I remember the icicles, like in the bathroom sink. I remember.
There were icicles in the sink.
Yeah, it was really cold.
What kind of no heat backdoor abortion clinic did you go to?
We went to like the Amish,
Foreskins or
the
us?
Jewish version of like the Amish, basically. You know, like it was like in a shed. I got circumcised there, and the whole point of this is, so these people, it's 3 days after the circumcision in the story that we're telling. 3 days after my circumcision was excruciating. I remember it was hard to walk. I was afraid to walk.
Really?
It was painful. It was not like pleasant.
You weren't rubbing off at that point, right? So like you didn't have friction problems, right?
I was too afraid to go to the bathroom.
Oh.
It hurt so much. So these people, 3 days after their circumcision, are in a tremendous state of pain, which is why I told that story, because I want people to understand they are in a tremendous amount of pain.
The fact that you remember something from that age
Yeah.
is very telling that it's had
Sure,
to be painful and
of course,
traumatic.
it's lasting, right?
I'm glad I got mine done when,
Oh, and by the way, I didn't even tell you the creepiest part of the story. After I was circumcised, there was a big like feast, like a big banquet held with all like, the Hasidic community. And they like picked me up. I'm like 5. I wasn't even like 2 weeks old. And showed a room full of people my circumcision.
Is that why you have this whole exhibition streak in you, and you're always looking to see people naked and stuff? You always
Nah, that's just internet porn.
but something's got to be driving you towards that. So, all right.
So, Jacob's sons.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
You look much more relaxed. How long have you been carrying that trauma around, man? Now that you've got that out there, you got it out in the airwaves. Like, you look lighter, man.
No, like I tell people this. I've told
Randos
tons
on the
of
subway.
people.
Anybody who will fucking listen.
Well, those are more rants than
There's
me.
a reason
Those
the
are
only-
rants rather than me telling them.
All right.
Oh, you think you got it tough? You should have seen what happened to me. You want to see? I'll show you right now.
All right. So, all right. It wasn't a grindstone accident. All right.
So 3 days after the entire town gets circumcised,
That's,
2 of Jacob's children get together.
they're the badass ones.
What do they do, Scott?
Man,
It's crazy.
They take their swords
Yeah.
and they systematically go through the city and they murder every male.
This is crazy to me.
It's crazy. Because
2 of them.
Wait. I think 2
How
of them.
small was this community that they murdered every male? Because it said they killed every man in the town.
I always thought there were certain times where, as guys, we show our affection by, horsing around, playing around. So I was in a construction type industry for a while, and it was always practical jokes and everything. And sometimes they went too far, and I always felt there was certain times you just don't mess with another man. When he's sleeping, you don't do that. I mean, when you're young, you put lipstick on him, but you don't physically.
That's non-consensual. That's non-consensual.
Yeah.
What happened
So
to
not
you,
when
Scott?
not when you're sleeping.
Is this like
what?
Is this a podcast where we tell our deepest, darkest secrets?
Yes. There's certain times you don't mess with a man. When he's sleeping, when he's eating, when he's in the bathroom doing anything in the bathroom related, or when having sex. And I'm going to add to that when recovering from a circumcision. Like, yo, respect, man. In a normal course of things.
And by the way,
this was a plan.
These men didn't even do anything. All they did was comply with getting circumcised.
Yeah, so these two maraud through the city and kill all the males. Now, I don't know how laid up these people were. Like, I'm just thinking, I mean, if you went house to house, knock, knock, hey, Jacob's son's just checking on you, how's the circumcision? Dead.
Yeah.
No screaming. Like, I guess nobody would be alerted. I guess stealthily, you could kill a lot of people.
So you think they did it like ninja style? That's the only way they could have done it, right? Without an uprising occurring.
Glad you said ninja, since they're in the time of the dinosaurs. What do you call it? Ninja dinosaur.
What?
You never saw us. Yeah, that's what they wrote when they killed everybody.
Yeah.
You never saw us.
I got it.
Thank you, Alexa, for that dad joke. You got to give credit where credit's due.
You got to give me a little bit of time so I can get the podcast going again after that grinding to a halt moment.
Really? Because talking about your penis was not a grinding the whole moment.
So while I wasn't laughing at your joke, I was actually thinking of something else. They could not have done it stealthily. And I'll tell you why.
Right.
Even if they snuck around perfectly from house to house, killing every man quietly, there's still women and children, right? Like, there must have been women in a house with a man. Like, they could not have gone through the whole city without being seen.
Subservient women of the time, the reason there were two brothers with swords, one put a sword to either the child's or the woman's neck and say, you make a sound, you're next. Kill the husband and go, oh, we're leaving. Not a sound. And they might have thought maybe they just killed my husband. They didn't even realize that we were going, you stay put, you don't leave, and you don't make a sound.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're thinking about it too much now, but I think that the authors of I don't know. It seems like when I read it, I ain't take it as they were stealth. I just read it like everyone was so laid up from the circumcision. And again, I don't want to minimize the amount of pain, but at some point you would think adrenaline would kick in and a man would be able to hear murdering happening.
No, dude, man,
and get his shit together in order to protect himself.
If you come up to somebody in a house, like you're being chill with them, and you have your sword out, you put it up in their neck and just slide it through their throat. They can't make a noise.
So they kill everyone in the town,
and all the males,
and on top of that, they steal everything.
No. When the two are done,
the
less crazy brothers, I guess, went and plundered the whole city.
They come in and plunder the city.
Everything.
They
also said they took the wives and children.
They took everything.
And made them their prey? So now did they capture them?
Was it their prey?
That's what, they used the word prey. Like
I didn't notice that.
And prey. So I'm wondering, like, if, the two tough brothers challenged the men, and then the other brothers came in and goes, I just stole your golden goblet.
Yeah.
You have 3 seconds head start. I'm coming for you. And then did they just murder them that way?
I mean, I didn't see that. Now that you mentioned the word prey, I just thought that they took them and made them part of their clan now.
Yeah, I don't know, because they don't mention these people anymore.
Okay. But these people didn't deserve any of this because they didn't do anything.
Not a proportional response.
So their sister was raped by Sachem, who I'm assuming was one of the men that was killed. It's not even mentioned.
What they should have done, in my opinion, was what was the father's name?
The father's name was Hamor.
Hamor. They should have found out where Hamor headquarters was, waited to the middle of the night, called in an airstrike. Maybe the janitor gets killed. It's a proportional response, something the American president would do. Not wide scale murder, because they weren't guilty of anything.
I agree. Unless it was Trump, and then a Saudi prince murdered a journalist, and then nothing was done about it.
I don't know. Dude, that hasn't happened yet. We're 6,000 years before
I'm sorry.
any of that happened.
I'm prophesying.
So now Jacob, let's get back on it. So Jacob tells his two crazy sons, damn, yo, you are making my shit hard here. Let me rephrase that around you. Yo, you're making life difficult for me, man. These people are going to rise up. And he said, you made us odious to the people. Odius.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the big brain guy. So do you know what that means?
Yeah, odious.
Odious. I don't know what that word is. I have it as this is going on the vocabulary
Odious
list.
means like distasteful.
Oh, okay. That's perfect. All right, that's perfect. Yeah, okay. And their response was, should our sister be treated like a whore? No, but you probably shouldn't murder the entire population of a city either. As considering all these guys were willing to get circumcised for you.
I don't know.
Well, not really for you.
I don't know where the morality comes from that this family has adopted. But let us not forget, Scott, this is literally the family that God has said will spread its seed all over earth. Right?
That explains the crazies in the world.
So these are Abraham's great-grandkids. Jacob is Abraham's grandchild. And so I'm having a lot of trouble finding any redeeming qualities in any of Abraham's descendants or Abraham himself.
Except for Esau, of
course. Like, Genesis is making the case for why this particular family is the progeny of Israel and the Jewish people. And I'm just disgusted by all of their behavior so far.
Oh, wow. That's you're out there, man. You are out on a limb there.
I mean, there's not a lot of redeeming qualities in any of these characters that we're reading about.
Well, I believe like in any good story, there's a beginning, middle, and an end. You know, so like you're seeing the beginning of the hero's journey.
Yeah. So you think it's going somewhere?
God, I hope so.
Because we went through.
I don't know how we make up for this.
We went through Abraham's life. I mean, listen. It was full of deceit.
Yeah, just like
violence.
Just like this whole city should have been murdered for the sins of one person. I don't think the entire people should be judged that these two sons did this mass murder.
But it's murder. But it's more than just the sons. We've read about the entire patriarchal line.
Jacob was all right. No, Esau
was Jacob all right? Because Jacob was raping slaves.
Yeah, shit. Esau's been okay, right? Like he's an adult, but
Esau is impulsive. He's like an impulsive asshole who just like gives up. Like,
okay, but he's not hurt. If anything, he's benefiting the people around him that can outsmart him.
Well, I just don't think
he
also married Canaanites.
I think it's a true.
So you see, the only like morally uprighteous person is actually being portrayed as the villain in some ways. Like, how dare he marry, like, a Canaanite? Wait. How dare he be impulsive? Like, those aren't, like, moral failings. Those are just, like, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think the most moral person so far, or character so far, has been the serpent. He spoke truth to power and got punished.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. All you have to do is listen to God. And so when Jacob finds out what his sons did, and he's like, yo, man, what are you guys doing? Like, we had all this shit, and now you're causing me problems. We get to Genesis 35, and that's where God shows up. And God's like,
time to bounce.
Yeah, we got to get out of here.
Which I meant to say, that's the reason he started this trek back. Because God told him to head back home.
Yeah, you got to go to Bethel.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, time to bounce. Go to Bethel and make an altar to the God that appeared to you when he told you to get away from Esau because he was going to murder you. And this comes back to last episode when He says, all right, he builds the altar, and he tells the rest of his household, okay, get rid of all the rest of your home goods. All that stuff you got at Marshall's, Bed Bath & Beyond, you got to get rid of. So,
well, he told them to get rid of like their idols, like their god idols.
Gods. And and silly me, I was arguing last time that there must have been a misprint because I think they meant goods, not gods. And you were like, Scott, are you seriously thinking that? I'm like, yeah, goods. Like they stole shit from the house, not realizing idols and you know. Yeah, so you may have been right about that.
Well, once in a while.
So they all give up their fake gods or their home goods, and they bury them under a tree.
Stop.
Listen
to this.
And listen.
Genesis 35, verse 1. God said to Jacob, "Arise, go up to Bethel and settle there. Make an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother." Okay. God says to him, make an altar to the God who appeared to you. Why wouldn't he just say, make an altar to me? Is this a different God? Remember, this goes back to when you're like we and us, when God is like talking to himself. So is there more than one God?
In this case, I think he's saying, why don't you make an altar to that God that saved your ass last time? Talking about himself, like, yeah,
talking
that's me.
About this guy.
Yeah. Who saved your ass and has two thumbs? This guy, yeah.
All right. So he tells him, go back to Bethel where you had your dream with your stairway to heaven. And even though you built me an altar there, why don't you go and build another one?
Build another one.
Now, Jacob tells his people to change their clothes. I didn't understand that.
I don't.
Literally, he told them to, quote, change their clothes.
I don't recall that, and I don't know why. Why would they do that?
Yeah, I didn't really understand. Like, were they?
Oh, is it because they were running away and like change your clothes so people don't know that you're the idiots that just
massacred
this
you think
whole
like let's disguise ourselves?
Yeah, I guess. Like, why else would you change your clothes?
Possibly.
It's like in Grand Theft Auto when you go change the paint job on your car because you just ran over 97 people.
Right. So he's like, yo, here's your new passport. This is your new name. Like, these are your new credit cards. Give me your cell phones. Only use, like, burner accounts. And definitely throw on that fake mustache and change your clothes. We're out of here. And they go. They jet.
Which none of it was necessary because as they were traveling to wherever they were going, they had no worries about people intercepting them because God brought terror to the cities they passed nearby.
Yeah.
Like, he ran interference.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about that caravan.
He cast the spell.
Yeah, but like they don't describe what the terror is. What do you think the terror is?
Well, I think God went and he opened up his cabinet and he got down one of those jars, mason jars with the foreskins in it.
Magic hands.
I think he definitely concocted some brew and maybe like it was a mist, and through the mist of the burning foreskins, a terror.
Andy Dick showed up.
That guy's one of the craziest celebrities ever.
Is he a celebrity?
Yeah, everyone has a story about Andy Dick.
Yeah, so when they were on their way, or when they get there, Rebecca's nurse, Deborah, died.
Yeah.
Who is Rebecca?
Rebecca is
Jacob's wife?
Jacob's wife that he
Rachel?
loves. Rachel is Isaac's wife, Jacob's mom.
Right. I saw a meme. How come people named Deborah sometimes go by Deb, but never by Bruh? Meme I saw the other day. All right.
I'm going to start sending you memes because I don't know what kind of memes. Are you getting memes from like your elderly like relatives?
I get dadjokememes.com. Gonna register that one. So,
Scott, I'm sorry. We are 1 hour and 8 minutes in.
Yeah, we got to get moving.
No, that's not why I bring this up.
Oh, damn.
I was prepared today. I'm usually not prepared. And it hasn't arisen. You have not made a single fucking Star Trek reference today. You haven't made a single 80s reference today. You haven't made a single...
I made the Clark W. Griswold reference. That's probably 80s, right?
Okay, that's true. You did make that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how do you know I didn't have Star Trek and Star Wars in my back pocket for the finale?
Oh, are we waiting for that?
Whatever, man. You and your spoilers.
All right.
All right, so they bury Deborah's remains under another oak. They like oak trees.
Mm-hmm.
And then God says, your name is Jacob.
No, God says your name isn't Jacob.
No, first he says it is Jacob,
Okay.
and now it will no longer be Jacob.
Right.
It's now Israel.
Yeah.
And that's what brought me to... Didn't he do that last episode?
Yeah, he did that after their night of wrestling. He told them, because you've wrestled
Do you think he was out
me-
of breath, and you think he was just like, he forgot in the moment? Like,
So Israel, according to the little footnote in the version that we've read, literally means the one who strives with God. So Jacob wrestled with God, and so his name became Israel, the one who strives with God.
Oh, okay. And they ended up naming an entire country after that. It's not a bad... Okay.
And so God not only names him Israel,
And he says, be
but then
fruitful and
God,
multiply.
God busts out the greatest hits.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a comedian that doesn't come up with a new act, and like no matter how old he is, when you flip on like a video on YouTube, they're still doing the same goddamn tired routine. And so God is still thousands of years later doing the same fucking routine.
You know, I don't mean to be offended, but we're 8 episodes in, and I think I've read the same routine multiple times.
I promise that your seed will spread, and that your children will be like the dust upon the earth and the stars in the sky. It's like, yeah, when?
Dude,
God?
Dude, you know, all that work I'm doing on the website that you haven't seen yet,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done any work yet. That's going to be, I'm going to have like a scoreboard of like his greatest, well, maybe not a score, like a running total of like a tally of like the same shit that gets repeated there. All right, so Jacob builds a pillar of stone, and then he pours out a drink on it, I guess to his dead homies.
To his homies.
And then some oil on it.
All his homies love God.
Yeah, so then brings us to 35:16, the birth of Benjamin and the death of Rachel.
The birth of Benjamin and the death of Rachel, Jacob's beloved Rachel.
Wait. Who's Rebecca then?
Rebecca is Isaac's wife, and Rachel is Rebecca with an H. Rebekah is Isaac's wife. They're Jacob's parents. Rachel is Jacob's wife.
Why'd you specify Rebecca with an H? Has there been multiple Rebeccas?
I think so.
I don't know. Yeah, so on their way to wherever the hell they were going this time, they're always going somewhere.
They're going to Bethel, right?
Yeah, I don't even know anymore. Rachel was in labor. I guess she was pregnant again, and she gave birth. And as she was dying, she named the twins Luke and Leia. No, all right, no, that wasn't it. Names the son Ben-Oni, which means son of my sorrow.
Yeah, great name.
Yeah, to
Great
Israel,
name for a child.
To Israel's credit, he goes, "We're just gonna call him Benjamin." Like,
Yeah. So on her dying wish,
one who killed their mother in childbirth.
as she's giving birth, she's dying. She's like, "Your name will be Ben-Oni, son of my sorrow."
Yeah,
like, what is her sorrow?
One who wrecked my whole shit on his way out. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jacob's like, nah.
Yeah, you know, we're moving on. So they
Do you know what Benjamin means?
$100 bill.
Son of the right hand, or son of the south.
I thought son of the right hand is the ones that end up on the wall.
Gross.
Gross. So they build a pillar on Rachel's tomb which is there to this day.
Ooh.
I didn't last time I looked it up.
How much can I pay to see it?
I didn't. Yeah, exactly. And I didn't look it up, not because I didn't want to, but because we're actually recording 2 days earlier than usual. So I kind of read this like.
Yeah. Why don't you stay on the microphone, Scott?
Sorry.
Because you keep moving this way and then you move this way. We're not doing like Dark Side of the Moon here, where we're like panning sound around.
Is that what I sound like when you just did it? Like it was awful. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. I'm working on it.
As soon as I move off the mic, you see what happens?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be on this side. You see what happens?
Yeah,
now I'm back on mic.
Yeah, so all right. So he pitches a tent behind the Tower of Eder, and there's no mention of that again.
The Tower of Eder?
E-D-E-R.
E-D-E-R?
Yeah.
Like Eden, but Eder?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the stupid version of Eden. It's Eder.
Oh, no. I am refraining from making so many jokes that are going to get me canceled. So Reuben, who was Reuben?
The sandwich.
Yeah. Well, he laid with Bilhah, which was Jacob's concubine, who was...
So Rachel, Jacob's son is banging the slave that Rachel made Jacob have sex with, and he's got like a shit ton of kids with her. Right. So now his son's banging her.
So the incest goes on to some degree.
It's not even incest, it's rape. She's like, what do they call her? A maid?
They didn't specify rape.
She ain't no maid,
they did not specify rape.
If you're a slave and your owner is having sex with you, that's rape. Because you can't give consent.
I was actually wondering about that also, because all the time where like Leah and Rachel or whatever gave their maids for him to go into, I kind of think they had to do it, right? That was definitely rape. Now.
I literally said when we were discussing it, they were sex trafficking them.
Oh, you did say that.
Yeah.
I was probably waiting to interrupt you, not really listening to
you.
You
were probably waiting for like a moment to contradict me or like ask me how I know what trafficking means.
So they say Jacob had 12 sons, and then there's a bunch of names, blah, blah. Like
look, it was confusing. The way it was worded, I couldn't tell if all his sons were 12 or if he had 12 sons.
No, I think he had 12
he had
sons.
12 sons because then they list all the sons that he had, and I counted them up.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I counted. So it's 12 sons. So Jacob, between his 2 wives and the slave women, has 12 sons.
Yeah.
And that gets us to the last section of Genesis 35.
This blew my mind.
This is ridiculous.
It's super short. It's like a 1-sentence chapter. You want to say the title?
It's the death of Isaac.
Isaac, the one who felt hairy sheepskin neck
on his deathbed,
and that had to be what? That had to be
decades earlier.
Decades.
He's like, "Come, my son, so I can give you my final blessing." And then they had this huge like family argument over it.
Crazy.
Like it split the whole family up. And he's still alive.
This old bastard.
180. What happened to God's whole thing about like people aren't going to live like past a certain age anymore? God forgot again.
Maybe he didn't forget. Maybe he didn't forget. Maybe he was empty. I mean, people live in 900 years, right? So he did curtail them quite a bit, but not as much as we figured they would.
Either way, Isaac was still alive this whole time. And Isaac dies at 180, and Esau and Jacob both bury him.
Yeah, which was nice. That was a nice brothers back together.
Well, that's what happened also with Abraham when Jacob and Ishmael buried Abraham, even though, remember, Ishmael was sort of like cast out because he married like Egyptians. And
somebody died. They buried somebody. Esau decided to take everything. The land wasn't big enough for Jacob and Esau again. Not any animosity, but it was time they had to move apart. So he took everything, including the property, and moved away from Jacob. I didn't understand.
This was in Genesis 35?
Oh, wait. No, it was in 36. You said we didn't read.
Yeah. So
All right,
you
so-
want to tell me about 36?
Well, I mean,
Because it's basically a
it's
genealogy.
it's super short.
Okay.
So at the beginning of 36, verses 1 through 5 or whatever, yeah, it's names. It's all Esau's descendants.
And then somewhere in the middle of the names, they stuck in some information.
Yeah, I did. I scanned it because I was like, I thought I read something. So yeah, Esau took everything, including his property, and moved away from Jacob just to spread out, not because of animosity. They just had to spread out. And I'm like, how do you take the property with you? I didn't understand.
Well, what's
that.
the property? The property
It
is
could have been
tents.
just, I guess I was thinking land, but I guess maybe not land.
Yeah.
It's just all right. And then after that, it's more names, and then they go into clans. Kings of Edom. Esau is now named
the
Edom
cheese?
at some point. Edom is a cheese.
Edom cheese.
I didn't know that.
Dutch.
Oh, okay. Never been to Dutch.
How do you know this cheese exists? Have you ever been to Holland?
Is that what the Dutch are?
The Netherlands, Holland.
Yeah, then the last thing in 36 is these are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the Israelites. And then it says names and generations, clans and names, and that's it.
All right.
So can we, when you set up next week's, can we start with 36? Because I like the Descendants ones because I feel like it's like a free ride.
Yeah. So
It's like bonus points that you don't have to work for.
yeah, but you're not going to remember any of the names.
No, I don't actually read them, but it's like we breeze through it. I'm like, hey, I got through a chapter. I feel like I accomplished something for very little work.
I got it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so let's start with 36. And
So in the next episode, if you want to read along, we're going to be doing Genesis 36 through 39.
nice.
Once we're done with that, we'll only have 11 chapters left of Genesis.
Oh,
we're getting
why not?
towards the end of Genesis.
11 chapters. That's probably
That's
like 2 more
probably
episodes.
like another 5-6 episodes.
We have 5 or 6 more
I mean,
episodes of
we've been
Genesis?
doing 3 chapters, more or less. We had one episode where we did 5 chapters. I think 3 chapters is a good amount.
Yeah, I guess so. How long are we on the time here? Like
We're about an hour 21 in.
Little editing of nonsense. We'll get down to about an hour 19. And, if you put the work in, I think we're good.
And that's it. We'll see you next time on Libel the Bible.
All right, peace
Peace
everybody.
out.